If you follow the news, you've probably heard of a company called Blackrock. I know we've discussed it on Rising. It is the world's largest asset manager, controlling $11.5 trillion in assets last year. Many on the right have grown to dislike the investment firm for partaking in what's called ESG, or environmental social governance initiatives. Put simply, BlackRock was prioritizing investment in companies that meet certain ESG standards on things like climate change and diversity. Now that appears to be over.
Per the Wall Street Journal, BlackRock backed out of Net Zero Asset Managers in January. Net Zero Asset Managers is an initiative dedicated to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050.
In BlackRock's most recent annual report, they dropped references to DEI. For instance, the Wall Street Journal pointed out a stark difference. Reporter Jack Pitcher writes, BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, in a 2021 letter to shareholders, said, quote, "We have a long-term strategy aimed at improving diversity, equity, and inclusion at BlackRock. To truly drive change, we must embed DEI into everything that we do." Compare that to their most recent report, which says, quote, "Delivering for the firm's clients requires attracting the best people from across the world. BlackRock is committed to creating an environment that supports top talent and fosters diverse perspectives to avoid groupthink." Well, that's much better.
There's been a lot of pressure since 2022 from red state attorneys general, House Republicans, and oil and gas lobbyists to stifle ESG efforts.
Other changes BlackRock has made include ending workforce representation goals, not requiring managers to interview a diverse set of candidates, and their credit facility is not lending money based on whether the borrowers meet diversity targets. BlackRock also made another major move. They stuck $23 billion deal with CK Hutchison, a Hong Kong-based conglomerate that gives BlackRock control over key parts of the Panama Canal. Here's Trump touting that move last night.
Further enhance our national security, my administration will be reclaiming the Panama Canal, and we've already started doing it. Just today, a large American company announced they are buying both ports around the Panama Canal and lots of other things having to do with the Panama Canal and a couple of other canals. The Panama Canal was built by Americans for Americans, not for others, but others could use it. But it was built at tremendous cost of American blood and treasure. 38,000 workers died building the Panama Canal.
Conservative filmmaker Robby wrote on X, BlackRock was one of the largest entities forcing DEI into corporations. Their leadership declared that they must embed DEI into everything. Larry Fink even admitted BlackRock was forcing behaviors of companies to change. Today, they're exiting DEI. We're winning. Musician Chris Lash, meanwhile, in reference to BlackRock acquiring Panama, the canal ports, wrote this, "MAGA has been against BlackRock. How is this a victory?" Chris Rossini, a senior fellow at the Ron Paul Institute, posted, "When they said the U.S. will take the Panama Canal, it turned out to be BlackRock. When they say the U.S. will get Ukraine's minerals, it will turn out to be who now?" All the while, the American people are led to believe that they're winning a prize that actually cost them $300 billion. So this is a very interesting topic. I think we'll have plenty of disagreement, although maybe some areas of disagreement. The way BlackRock, in my view, has operated to force businesses to comply with ESG and DEI mindsets is, I think, very bad, as they are now admitting. I think they mostly did those things as a form of PR, and this is where you might actually agree from your they're sinister and bad kind of global capitalist hegemony. They're making you overlook that by saying, but look at our good DEI stuff, look at how diverse, look at how many black people we're employing, you can't yell at us.
Words in my mouth?
I thought that was what you were going to say.
Don't project onto me. There are separate issues for me here. First of all, the fact that Fink had been previously such a champion for the environment, to see him surrender that is very sad to me. I don't see why we're making social investment wrong. Social responsibility like it's a bad thing. And I think that if we ask, this is a basic issue.
Because it makes everything more expensive for us.
Oh, more expensive. Well, what about, see, this is how I feel. As an individual, I believe on the earth, God would have me try to do the right thing, not make money more important than doing the right thing. I think it's a perversion of the principles that should underlie our economy and our politics to make corporate profits always the bottom line as opposed to humanitarian and democratic principles. So I think there is such a thing as righteous profit. And I don't think we're going to make less money in the long run if we also steward well the earth on which we live. It's not going to be good for anybody economically when this economy, if the environment implodes, the economy will.
But it's not just a trade-off between the environment being cleaner, healthier, whatever, and profits. It's a trade-off between helping the environment and our material living standards. And asking people, I'm not talking about rich CEO type people, fine, they could sacrifice more, whatever, but for people to sacrifice, for people to live more difficult lives now to save the environment in the future, it's just never going to be a winning message. So we need, now I'm for protecting the environment, I'm for moving to cleaner sources of energy as it makes sense to do so, as you can still make those technologies as they become more profitable over time. Ending, like Europe should end its dependency on Russian gas and oil. That would be great. Move from oil to gas. I would say move to nuclear, which is very clean and very safe, which I know people on the left don't like, and we moved away from. And I think that's been very actually disastrous for both the environment and profits and having a more environmentally safe standards. But look, you can't just say like, oh yeah, we're gonna take away your access to really high-functioning washing machines, or we're gonna take away your access to gas stoves. Like normal, ordinary working people are actually the ones who are the most annoyed by that, because rich people can buy fancier things that cost more and it doesn't matter to them. The higher environmental ESG standards are felt by people who don't have money to spare.
This is why being a business leader is an art and not just a science. A first principle of the United States for the government itself is to be a broker between individual liberty, which includes financial liberty, economic liberty, and a concern for the common good.
Sure.
And I think a righteous CEO, I think a responsible business leader is one who is obviously seeking to make a profit, obviously to increase value for your stockholders, but realizes that there are other stakeholders as well. And that includes the people who breathe the air on this planet. That includes our grandchildren. So I don't think it has to be an either or, and I think America is righteous when we're at a big both and. Can we move on to Panama now?
Go ahead.
Okay, now, last night the president says, it's like he's going around threatening countries, not just Canada. He says about Panama, he says, we're going to take the Panama Canal one way or the other, we're going to take it. No, excuse me, because right now, whether you agree with what happened before, in the 70s I think it was, or not, it doesn't belong to us right now. Now, one of the problems that the president has with all this has to do with China. So you think the head of Panama wasn't on the phone with the Chinese this morning? We are not thinking at all about the repercussions of some of this. He's like a bull in the china shop. And
but I think this move was aimed very directly at curbing the Chinese influence. I agree with you. Well, we should not seek to conquer Panama or Greenland or Canada. It's ridiculous. I don't actually think it's being contemplated. We don't want to have more military engagement anywhere, particularly.
But what about
in these
his
places.
line?
But
We're
we do
gonna
want to
take it
counter
one
the
way or the
Chinese
other.
influence. I don't know what that means. I hope that means greater economic engagement with the relevant stakeholders in Greenland, Panama, et cetera, to have a better and more prosperous trade and economic relationship on our terms.
This is an
That's
important
what it
issue
should be.
for those of us who see things a little differently. I'm told all the time by conservative friends, by Trump voter friends and so forth, oh, Marianne, he doesn't mean that. He doesn't mean that. The more time goes on, the more some of these crazy things he says, oh, he does mean. So when the president stood up last night and he said, we're going to get it, one way or the other, we're going to get it. The president's behavior at this point.
You don't think that just means the deal that he wants he's going to get?
Listen,
he's getting with Zelensky after all?
I think the fact that he's a tough negotiator at times, I think all of us are like, yeah, if we are being treated unfairly by Panama in terms of Chinese ships, et cetera, I'm okay with that. That's very different than saying we're going to get it back one way or the other. Right. And I think that we have every reason as Americans to expect far more sobriety, far more responsibility, and far less ineptitude on the part of our president.
One last thought on the Blackrock story. When he says we're not going to do DEI, we want to just hire the best and brightest people and have diverse perspectives, I think 60, 70% of Americans agree with that. What's wrong with that?
Well, on the DEI, I think on the DEI, if they feel that there's coming back to the center in terms of the way companies operate, it's not for me to say because it's a private company. In terms of saying to anybody who values diversity, inclusion, who values the idea that we must include people who have been historically wronged in the way we function as a society, number one, I'm all for that. Number two, I don't like the idea of the government saying, this is what this is not how I should see things. Even like this woke stuff.
Well, I agree with that.
Even this woke stuff. All right, some of it makes me roll my eyes as well. But that's not the point. The government, people, if they want to look at it that way, they get to look at it that way. I get to look at things my way. You get to look at things your way. And I would never say to you, even though I think you're wrong most of the time and you think I'm wrong most of the time, I would never say to you, and I sure as hell don't think the government should be telling you that your way of thinking should die now.
I don't think you're wrong about that at all.
Thank you. Okay, we agree on that one.
All right, where do things stand with the Ukraine issue? We're going to speak to Michael Schellenberger, one of our favorite guests on Rising, about that. Stay tuned.